everybody. Welcome to another TFE Live. This one for the 16th of April. Show number 174. Thank you for joining us. It's a beautiful day here in San Francisco. We are again live from the Beach Street Yacht Club, Studio B, here in Julia's townhouse that she lets me have an apartment in, and we call that, Julia, the Beach Street Yacht Club. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to you. I trust you well. You want to do your little pre-show thingy here?
Sure. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Thanks.
Indeed. And likewise, if you'll become a patron over on the website, sailingillustrated.com, we really appreciate it if you'll come along with us and give us $1 or $2 a month. Some people give us 10 or even 20 a month, and we really appreciate it. It helps keep us going strong here on sailingillustrated.com, and also our Facebook page where we do this TFE Live now every Tuesday and Friday. Welcome. Thanks again. I want to switch forward here to this tragedy in France and express our, needless to say, solidarity with everybody in France and Catholics all over the world, people who, Catholic or otherwise, who revere Notre Dame, the cathedral, and what this tragic fire last night seems to be better news this morning, that the building itself is intact, and what is it, 800 years old? Is that right, Julia? Something like that.
But thanks to the stonemasons.
And it seems to be okay. I mean, if you can say something like this is okay, that's what it looked like last night there in the central part of the church. And then this is a shot from the New York Times just before we went to air this morning. And the good news is also reported in the New York Times just before we went to air, and hence the Sailing Connection, is that a couple of the big French fashion families, the Arnauds and the Pinaults, have pledged 600 million euros to fund the resources and skills necessary to restore the cathedral, a symbol of French identity. Now, I don't know these folks, Francois-Henri Pinault and his Mexican-American actress wife, Salma Hayek, famously cool actress. But I do know these folks, or at least I know the gentleman. This is Bernard Arnault, not well, and his wife, Helene Mercier. He is one of the wealthiest guys in the world, certainly in Europe and France, as the head of LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, hence the Sailing Connection, longtime sponsor in our sport. So congrats, bravo Zulu, to them, to the French. And it sounds like the cathedral will be rebuilt and better than ever. And hopefully they'll put some sprinkling systems in and modernize whatever they have to modernize in terms of the infrastructure. So good news, and a little bit of a Sailing Connection there because of Mr. Arnault, who has been a keen supporter of sailing via the LV Cup and more over the years. Well, we're on cultural notes, Julia. Do you know who this is?
No.
Take a look. Now do you know who it is? Happy 130th birthday to him. Handsome young man.
Handsome young man.
Now do you know who it is?
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. Charlie Chaplin was born today on this date 130 years ago in 1889. And I don't know why this caught me. I'm not sure he was ever a sailor or had any connection to sailing, but certainly a cultural icon. He was hilarious and an enormously cool innovator in this film, video, moving picture industry that we now find ourselves in as live streamers. And I just thought that I had no idea it was that long ago that he was born, 130 years.
I had no idea he was so handsome. I don't know why he always put his clown costume on.
Well, he was funny, and humor, I think, played better in the silent era than perhaps drama and other things, because it was difficult, or more easy, I guess, to show the humorous side, sight gags, and so on. But right. Charlie Chaplin, would be 130 years old today. Happy birthday to the late great, and may he continue to rest in peace. Okay, over on the website, We didn't do much over the weekend because we were following here in San Francisco the Nations Cup. But we are now, as you'll see there, second from the left up at the top, right? See if I can get my telestrator going here, Julia.
Yes, yes.
There, it kind of, oops, there it goes.
Yeah.
Up there are the stories, the current stories. Left is the most current, most recent to the right as they get older. But this story is from last Friday, and it's not really a story as much as it is a post of our show. We are now posting via YouTube onto the sailingillustrated.com page a YouTube version of this show. Now, it's the same 720p. It's high def, but because it's not going through Facebook, it's not compressed. Facebook compresses this stuff a bit, and it's a bit higher quality video on the website when we post it for a replay. And it makes it easier for people to find it.
Yes.
While you're there, you see the little Patreon orange up at the top. Click on that, please. Give us $1 or so, or 10 or more a month to help keep us going. That negates or mitigates the need for advertising. And also, while you're there, go over and sign up. If you're not already signed up, we have, I think, something like 3,000 people now signed up, so that you will get the auto email whenever we do post to the website, as we did this morning. And we posted this story written by the Fifth Beatle about the Star Sailors League Gold Cup, which they announced in some detail, at least 19 of the 40 team captains yesterday in Lausanne. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. Let's move forward. Okay, today we will talk about the SSL, what they used to call the Nations Gold Cup. Now it's just the Star Sailors League Gold Cup, and their announcement in Lausanne yesterday at the Olympic Museum. It was quite an affair. And France, the French Sailing Federation, FFV, has taken both divisions at the Nations Cup here in San Francisco over the weekend, and it was a cool event, hotly contested, and we'll tell you some more about that. And in the laser class, I'm not going to talk about it much because we're going to get Jean-Pierre Kekens on here and one or two others who are more au fait, as well as we're talking about France today, au fait, with this whole Croutonicism that is continuing in the laser class now that the International Laser Class Association, ILCA, has given the flick to their largest builder, Laser Performance, European-based builder, which also services the Middle Eastern market and the Americas, North and South Americas. There's only two other builders, or were. Now there are only two legal builders in Australia and Japan, and this big European builder that has the lion's share of the world market has been defrocked by the International Laser Class Association, and it is an S fight. That's a nautical term, you know.
But they've legitimized, or they've all the current ones are going to be grandfathered.
The current ones are class legal. Those that have World Sailing provides a plaque on to the builder, who then affixes it to the hull, which says that they paid their little duties to World Sailing.
Right.
And all the boats that have those plaques, which are almost all the current ones. But we have more news on that because the Croutonicism continues. You won't believe what the latest development is, and we'll tell you about that in a moment.
All right.
Okay. Bravo Zulu. Let's happy news, good news. Let's start with the Star Sailors League, the so-called Gold Cup. 19. I thought they were going to announce 20, but they actually only announced 19. Not that wasn't a significant feat. Of 40 teams total, which will compete in this event come 2021, the fall of 2021, September, October, including from Brazil through the United States. You can see the list, and the list of impressive sailors who are representing as the captains. And what they announced yesterday were actually the team captains and one or two helmsmen, nominated helmsmen, who maybe are captains or not. Some of the captains will helm, some won't. The captains will choose some people from their country. I think it's 5, and then the other 5, I can't remember the exact numbers. It's all on the website in the story that the Fifth Beatle wrote. And it's 5 will be chosen by the captain. The other, I think, 5 will be chosen according to the Star Sailors League ranking system. So people coming up through the Star class, through their annual events that are going on now, will qualify for that country's team, whether the captain likes them or not, I guess. But certainly the captain will help massage that as well. I think it's a hell of a format. And they say it's like the football World Cup because it's nationalistic. You have to be a passport-carrying countryman of that country to sail on the team. And it's not being sailed in stars. It's being sailed in a new 47-foot monohull.
Why did they do that?
Well, because I think they want to have something that is representative of more sailors, not just two guys in a starboat that maybe means you're the best starboat sailor, but not necessarily the best
Makes sense.
sailing team, bigger picture sailing team. So
Right.
I think it's a smart decision. And the racing, when it starts happening, like the SSL now, is 4 boat races. Now, you know about fleet races, which can be, any number of boats, 10 boats in the medal races of the Olympics, for example, or it can be 100 boats or more sometimes in some big fleet races. You know about team racing, which are teams of 2 or 3, sometimes 4, but call it teams of 3 racing, and whichever team has the best cumulative scores wins the match, wins the race. You know about match racing, which is just 1 boat against 1 boat. Well, this is 4 boat racing, which is what they've been doing in the Star Sailing League, in the starboats, now for, I think, 5 years. I don't know what we're going to call this. Let's call it quad racing, 4 boat racing, quad racing. I don't know. But it's cool. It's just enough boats that there's some action on the race course, not just sometimes 2 boats in a match race get a bit far apart, hard to understand. Or if it's not, if they can't even be in the same shot like we saw in the America's Cup in Bermuda, Team racing is mass confusion because the boats are changing, maneuvering against each other, and the winning combination is constantly changing. If you've got a 1-2-6, that's a winning combination. If it's a 3-5-6, it's not. And it's bloody confusing,
Yes.
right? You've watched it from the deck of the St. Francis Yacht Club.
Indeed.
And on TV. This is really cool because it's 4 boats. They're almost all together in the shot all the time. You can see who maybe splits off and goes to one side of the track while, say, the other 3 are going, and, okay, what's going to happen when they come back together? And out of the 4, the 2 top boats of that quad, let's call it quad racing, move on to the next bracket. And it's brackets. It's tennis ladder elimination brackets after the early stages, which I won't get into. Here's a video. Let's go to the video, which explains it more. This is Mateusz Kuznierowicz, who's the Polish champion, great sailor, and who is the sports director for the SSL. And let's hear his explanation, and then we have some very cool news at the end of this video for you about our Friday show.
SSL Gold Cup is like a World Cup in football. Top athletes, led by the captains, will represent their countries in the competition to crown the best sailing nation. Sport of sailing had never event like this. It's not about the technology. It's not about another sailing adventure. It's not about the individual competition. It's about the teamwork and the teams which will gather together to fight in the SSL Gold Cup. 5 of them will be selected from the SSL Global Ranking, and 5 others will be selected by the captain. They will meet all together to sail on the one designed boat provided by the regatta organizer. It is expected that more than 50 nations will join for the competition in 2021 for the SSL Gold Cup.
The SSL Gold Cup is a great opportunity for me personally, but also for other young Greek sailors who want to make an impact on their international sailing stage.
The SSL Gold Cup, in my eyes, is a really fantastic format, and it's going to be an amazing event. I'm already looking really forward to it, because for me as an individual sailor, laser sailor, always being alone on my boat, it's a great opportunity to sail.
With the SSL Gold Cup, we now have an event that has been missing in sailing. It's not about the technology, it's not about the speed, It's about the skill and talent and teamwork of the sailors. It's about countries. It's about national pride. And in the end, the winner will be determined by just a matter of meters.
You got to like it. Skill, talent, not the technology, as Mr. Kayard said, Paul Kayard. And I'm pleased to report that on the show on Friday, Paul will be joining us live in studio, as you heard earlier this morning, Julia, for a further explanation. Paul, who lives here in the Bay Area, is the chairman of the board now of St. Francis Yacht Club, and obviously a champion sailor and a longtime friend. We've done, like 2, 3, can't remember how many America's Cup campaigns together over the now many years, but one of the top sailors in the world. He will be with us live in studio on Friday for our regular TFE live show. So, Paul and all the rest of you, congratulations. I think this is a fantastic development. And to answer, Julia, your question, I really think that the bigger boat, not too big, it's not going to make it too kind of offshore specific, but it is enough of a big boat that it
requires teamwork.
Exactly. And you heard that in the video.
Right.
Well put, well said. And you've got to have a team of really good sailors from your country, and there'll be laser sailors, and there'll be big boat sailors, and starboat and other kind of medium-sized boats represented as well. And I think it's fair to say, as they hope and as Paul and co assert, that this will be a test of the nation's sailing prowess. The America's Cup, is, but it's technology, not just sailing. And it's always been the pinnacle of the sport, and I'm sure it will continue to be. But for many countries that never have a chance to get in the America's Cup, you say, well, the Olympics, if an Olympic team like the Brits or the Australians or the Americans even in the past have had the most number of medals in the Olympics, are they the best sailing country? Maybe, at least in Olympic-style racing. But I think Kayard's onto a plan here with Mateusz Kuznierowicz and the rest. Look at the lineup of people there.
Yes, it's fabulous.
In that regatta, you saw the names, you saw the headline,
yes.
The names in the headline this morning of the story that we posted. And anyway, bravo Zulu, full marks. I am really impressed. Let's see what the rest of you think. We'll go to the phones. Julia, you want to start with the first question or comment here? The phones. That's a throwback. We're going to the bloody internet.
Yes.
To Facebook Live to see your questions and comments.
Well, we have a few new people on. No grand questions.
Okay. Well, let's say hi to the people who are here, especially anybody who's new, because there's so many people coming on now. It's hard for us to say hi to everybody. Maybe a little audio coming off my phone there. We fixed that. Roger Lockhart, they're over 700 now. I wonder what that means. Roger, give us a little elucidation. Charlie Chaplin, Rick Rundle, Clark Chapin. Spring is coming to Michigan. Clark, a fair warning. We're starting a new segment here on the show, and we're going to call it, I don't know. Tell me, you all, the Fozy that are watching, tell us what we should call it, but something like the Commodore's Corner, or I don't know. We're going to feature a Commodore.
Commodore's on command.
Commodore's on command.
In command. Yeah.
Something. You tell us what the name should be for the segment. We even think we have a sponsor for it. But we're going to have a different Commodore from a different club in the world on the show as often as possible, live via Skype or even here in studio if you're coming through San Francisco or if I'm coming through your town. And it's just a short segment, because I keep saying that clubs are the heart and soul of the sport. Others say the same thing, Paul Henderson, many of you. So let's do something about it. Let's feature the clubs, as we try to do in our posts on Sailing Illustrated. But we're going to feature the clubs and ask the Commodore of a club to tell us about your club, large or small. And we're going to start with a modest-sized club as soon as I can get Clark Chapin, who is the past Commodore. He's not the current Commodore, but we'll take the past Commodore of a club as well. especially if it's Safosi, if it's somebody we know well. And I'm going to start with my home club in Michigan, where I grew up, where I was once Commodore back in the bloody 70s.
In the olden
I think
days.
78.
Yeah.
Club was started in 53, but it's produced champion sailors, national North American champions in several different classes. And I'm going to ask Clark Chapin to be our first Commodore in whatever we're going to call this segment. Tell us what you think we should call it. Tell us if you give us a thumbs up if you think it's a good idea. If you don't, give us a thumbs down. We like all the input. And feature different clubs and talk about them. Jay Hanfield is saying, and Clark Chapin, please let me know if you can do that and when. Not this Friday because we got K-Art on, but perhaps even next Tuesday. Jay Hanfield, the SSL Gold Cup is going to be great. I know so many regular guy yacht racers still can't wrap their heads around foiling boats. Yes, and this is in a non-foiling monohull, a 47-footer. They want to see boats that look like they race in beer can leagues, BI meaning Block Island Race Week, and hundreds of other regattas. This event is going to be to fill a huge void in major regattas that race in monohulls. I think in race in general. Everyone, as you say, Jay, can relate to it. Bravo, Zulu. Clark Chapin asking, is croutonicism or is it croutonics? Croutons the world over are one. We're going to get...
That's what it's for.
We're going to get President Trump, right, Julie, to use the word, to text the word croutonic, and we'll know we know we've arrived when that happens. The croutonic laser. Ali D. Nas, I kind of like this idea. Heat racing instead of fleet racing. Yes, good. Maybe it's heat racing instead of quad racing. I like that, Ali.
Yeah, I do too.
We can get March Madness style brackets going. Exactly. We'll say, because we ran all this, we broke this news a long time ago here on the show, and rather than digging out all the slides I did at the time, because they have rebranded. It used to be called the Star Sailors League Nations Gold Cup. Now it's the SSL, Star Sailors League Gold Cup. So all their slides, and I didn't want to run confusing, that they had brackets, they had all this stuff. Good idea, Ali. We'll have there's another website that does the March Madness college basketball brackets. Who cares? I mean, I love it. I watch it carefully, especially if Michigan is, or Stanford.
Oh, yes.
Or the Stanford women are doing well.
Indeed.
Ali, back and forth with you earlier this morning, and I've actually heard from the gentleman in question, just as a bit of a PM, a private message, or a DM, a direct message, as the kids say. And it sounds like he's going to be in touch with you. John Emmett, sounds good, and the timing works. Neil Collingridge, here's a conspiracy theory. I have no evidence for it. Now, yesterday, as these people were coming on CNN and Fox with conspiracy theories about the fire in Paris, they were all cutting them off, saying, let's don't get into conspiracy theory. But here at Sailing Illustrated, we can do that.
Yes.
Without being accused of being. I hope, Neil, what I'm about to read, I haven't checked it, but World Sailing have to address the EU investigation into anti-competitive practice. This is Neil Collingridge's possible conspiracy theory. In respect of the laser, they can't achieve that when 85% of the lasers are supplied by Laser Performance, the European manufacturer. They can't be FRAND, which is the monopolistic term for having multiple, in this case specifically, multiple builders, unless there is real competition within a geography, and with LP having an effective monopoly in their region, they can't be FRAND. And this is saying that, okay, I'm going to stop. I don't know what's happening, and we're going to find out, because Jean-Pierre Kekens is on this. There's something going on. Why this has not been sorted out by World Sailing a long time ago. I mean, this has been going on for years. And why they've allowed this to fester, that's, to me, Neil, is what's really perplexing in this. And well, I'm not going to say more than that. But there's something wrong. And you're continuing on with Neil. So then suddenly LP gets its license suspended for something they've not complied with for years, access for inspection. And hey, presto, they get replaced by several suppliers rather than one, therefore making Laser, or whatever it's going to be called, FRAND compliant. Meaning I can't remember now what as you can tell, I can't remember what the acronym FRAND means, but it has to do with having multiple builders in the case of the Laser. FRAND compliant, meaning not anti-competitive, not a monopoly. Why would ILCA do that? Well, imagine if the quid pro quo was the lasers reselection for the 2024 Olympics. That all sounds fanciful, but no more unbelievable than the fin getting kicked by a vote that was incorrectly recorded. Thoughts? Well, I pass it on to all of you. If that's the case, then you got to give a Bravo Zulu to World Sailing for fixing this and going against the monopoly grain that is apparent. And this is why I'm such a big supporter of classes and class owners associations, the owners and the sailors controlling the class and saying, look, anybody can build a fin. We'll license anybody. In fact, if you want to build one in your garage or a laser or tell me what, you can do that as long as when the boat comes to get measured, everything is in accordance with a very detailed class rule. And that's the way all the most successful classes in the world were done up to the laser. And then when Bruce Kirby designed it, he said, okay, we're going to call this a manufacturer's one design. And whatever the manufacturer says is a laser, not anything else. Well, that's caused, obviously, lots of problems. Okay, we're going to tell you more about that in a minute, about what's going on in this unbelievable development in the laser class. Jay Hanfield, the second best thing about this event, meaning I guess we're back on the
Star
Sailors League, right? The second best thing about this event is that World Sailing has nothing to do with it. Now, I didn't collude. There's no collusion between me and the Russians, let alone between me and Jay Hanfield.
No.
And I completely agree, Jay, because the best things that happen in the sport are things that come from the grassroots up, as it's in this case from the sailors and the Star Sailors and the Star Sailors League. And they've got a couple of wealthy guys, one guy in particular in Switzerland. Maybe Paul will tell us some more about him on Friday when KR joins us on the show. But that's the way the sport thrives. When World Sailing tries to put something from the top down and says, here's how we're going to do it, we know best, it's like the federal government here in the U.S. or Brussels in Europe saying, we're from the government, we're here to help, and everybody runs and takes cover. And, oh, my God. Good point, Jay. Jennifer Dunbar had to pull over and watch that video. Bravo to Paul and the other members of the SSL. Jennifer Dunbar, a senior serious person, member at St. Francis Yacht Club and a leader in that club. Jean-Pierre Keekins, Peter McDonald, 27 other. Yep. Allie D. Noss, the phones. I'm going to use my rotary model. We're going to the phones. We're going to Skype. Hannah Lee Knoll. Hello, Hannah. And thanks for your email. Bill Wingrove, the croutons. No, we don't want to call the Commodores croutons, do we, Julia?
No.
They're not croutons. They're, it's the leadership. And by the way, I think we should also do it with class presidents.
Yeah, sure.
We should have another segment featuring class presidents as well as club Commodores, because they're the leaders. They're the heart and the soul of the sport, or so we here at Sailing Illustrated assert. Charles Ward. Hi, Charles. Jay Hanfield, the best parking spot at Club Corner. Club Corner, because most clubs reserve a spot. Not our club in Michigan. Clark Chapin will tell you he never had a reserved spot at our club in Michigan. We have plenty of parking, though. But a lot of clubs do have a reserved spot right outside the door for the Commodore and the Vice and maybe the rear and maybe the chairman of the board.
Yes.
Now, I'll tell you something cool about St. Francis and KR and the former chairman, Mark, who was our former chairman?
McLaughlin.
Mark McLaughlin. They have a spot, the chairman, and so, KR's traveling all over the world, racing and going to events like this thing in Lausanne on Monday. So they have a parking spot for the chairman. And St. Francis, unique among clubs that I'm aware, has not only a Commodore, Vice, and rear, but they have a chairman of the board who chairs the board meetings and runs supposedly the business side of the club. But it gives the club a double leadership. Some people think that's a good idea, like Julia.
I do, yes.
You think that's a good idea, right?
I do.
And there are some of us who think it causes problems. But regardless, what the chairman of the boards have been doing at St. Francis is they've been auctioning off their parking spot to regular members who pay some real money into the junior sailing program or the Olympic program.
The foundation.
The foundation, which supports junior sailing and
Yeah.
that's nice. I like it when clubs do that, excuse me, it's my nose here. But I think we should start a list of these cool things that clubs do and ask the Commodores to tell us what is the coolest thing your club does that maybe other clubs haven't heard of. And we start to share some best practices and some good ideas in whatever we're going to call this segment. Clancy Solways, Commodores comments. Okay. Glenn McCarthy. Hi, Glenn. Blake Middleton, good to see you on. Blake, I don't know if you knew this, Julia. Blake was the coach at Stanford for a long time, up until about 95 or 6, I think. Clark Chapin, do I have to wear a tie and a blazer? Might be a deal. No, Clark, you wear whatever you're comfortable in. And Julia's in her Stanford red coat today, and I'm in my blue blazer
Michigan.
as well. So it has nothing to do with Michigan. I think I was born.
Looks Michigan to me.
I was born in a blue blazer.
No.
I think. Kent Pulliam, with the SSL, there is a breakdown of pros, non-pros, and presume they have to meet Olympic national standards. Yes, that's what they said in the press release. That's what we reported in the story this morning on sailingillustrated.com, that they have to be a passport-carrying, Olympic-eligible national. Marcus Fentner, hi to you, Marcus. You in some exotic corner of the world, if not Berlin or Athens. You were in Istanbul last week, if I remember well. Ted Ryman likes Commodore's Corner. I think Commodore's Corner is okay.
Yeah, it is.
Rob Fry, hi, Rob. How's your son doing? How's Leonard doing? Is Leo in Genoa at that regatta? I haven't reported anything on today's show because there's not a huge amount of activity there among top sailors. It's interesting how this World Cup regatta there's people going to Hyères, there's people not there because some countries are using it as a qualifier, some aren't. In fact, I just got a text. I've had a couple texts from Malcolm Page, who sent me a note saying, this is with respect to Genoa, the World Cup Series. Genoa is not part of any, this is quoting from Malcolm Page, our chief of Olympic sailing here in the U.S. He says, Genoa is not part of any USA selection, unlike Palma, where they actually used that Palma regatta, the Trofeo Princesa Sofia, as part of the process in the U.S. for who gets to go in classes that we qualify in. So different countries do their Olympic selection different ways. You still have to qualify as a country by having people finish well enough in some of these specified regattas by World Sailing, but that person doesn't qualify. They're just qualifying the country. Then it's up to the country to decide if they're going to have separate Olympic trials or a lottery system or tell me what.
It would depend on the number of classes and the population.
True, and of course there's a quota now. The IOC limits the number of athletes, sailors that can go to the Olympics, and then World Sailing breaks that down between the 10 Olympic classes and then allocates them across the continents. Anyway, back to this comment from Malcolm Page. Genoa is not part of any USA selection, unlike Palma, so this event doesn't have the same importance and is being used only as a preparation measurement event on the big journey towards 2020. Many classes are using this event, and some others have opted to focus on Hyères. Hyères, for those of you who are not francophones, Hyères, the famously cool French sailing port town, where they have a massive regatta like Kiel, or like this Palma regatta, and it's not on the World Cup circuit, or like Sail Melbourne down in Australia. And World Sailing, it's again, the government tried to impose this World Cup series for marketing and money reasons, and the sailors don't go to it. And there are none of these regattas down in what is the most active corner, at least of the southern hemisphere. There's nothing in Brazil, which is active, but there's nothing in Australia and New Zealand of these. It was better when they had these events, Weymouth, Kiel, Hyères, and you didn't try to say, oh, you got to all go to Genoa. Genoa's a perfectly cool place to sail, pretty light. Marseille's a perfectly cool place to sail, pretty light. But, Cork in Kingston, Ontario, Miami, it's better when the classes decide and the clubs. Always better. Almost always better. He goes on to say the USA top, this is Malcolm Page again, top athletes are in the 470 class, Stu and Dave, our top 470 team, and have been. They were in Rio as well. Fin, Radial, Laser are not in Genoa, USA sailors. So you can see this is the World Sailing World Cup Series regatta, and this has been the problem. Countries don't take it seriously because they don't have to. And I think this is the last time you're going to see this World Sailing imposed WCS because it doesn't make any sense. And I hear behind the scenes that that's about to be, it's about to be 86th, as they say in the, you know that expression?
Indeed.
86th in the restaurant business. Okay, so all that from Malcolm Page. Let's slide on here. We'll get back to some more of your comments and get on with a Bravo Zulu. This one to the St. Francis Yacht Club, not for anything in particular that we're involved in, except we did go over and watch, didn't we, Julia?
We did.
And the Nations Cup took place there, as we told you, on Friday, over the 4 days. It was 4 or 5 days, but it ended on Sunday afternoon was the finals. Now, the Nations Cup, I actually had a hand in getting this off the ground back in the early 90s when I was vice chair of what was then called the CPOC, now called the Events Committee. And it was really the brainchild of Henri van der Rat from the Netherlands, who was then the racing director, paid staff on IYRU's staff, what was then IYRU, International Yacht Racing Union. And we'd put match racing into the Olympics via the Soling class, and we thought we should have a match racing World Cup circuit once every, tell me what, 2, 3, 4 years. So we started this thing up. What was then IYRU before it became ISAF and now World Sailing. And the event's been kind of hit and miss. It went on from the early 90s until about, I think, 06. And then every 2, 3, 4 years. And then it went into hiatus because it's hard to find a club like St. Francis that has a bunch of boats that are, they've got St. Francis, a fleet of J22s that are well maintained and virtually identical and good sales and so on. The last one, I think, was 4 years ago, this last Nations Cup. Wasn't it 4 years ago?
15, Vladivostok.
In Vladivostok. And that was won, the women's division was won by Nicole Briot, who's a member here at St. Francis. There's a women's division and an open division, meaning it's really men, but women could also sail in as crew. Were there any women here on the?
Yeah, I think on two teams.
Were there on 2 of the open
One.
division teams?
Yeah.
One. So there's a women's division, which is obviously all women on the boat, and the open, which can be men and women. And Nicole won it, and the club had a great time. She had a great time, and she and her husband, Bruce Stone, who's a senior series member and sailor, basically put this regatta on. He chaired the thing. He, I think, paid for a lot of it and hosted parties and so on, and they did a magnificent job. It was a fun event, and a lot of crews, some of whom we'd met before at other events, but it's adult match racing at its finest, and these teams were good.
Corinthian.
And Corinthian, or largely Corinthian. I think they're supposed to be Corinthian.
Yeah.
But it was fun racing. And we had, let me show you some of these pictures. I think I showed this picture last Friday. But this is teams at pre-start backing down, or they were backing down and now escaping. And you can see the umpire boat, and the guy's got the whistle in his mouth. He's about to do something. There are 2 umpires, and umpires from all over the world. And it's hard, long duty out there for the umpires, who are largely volunteers. We had a team, as Ted Ryman, if you're watching, I had the picture of these guys. I'm not sure you were on the show on Friday, but Ted Ryman, who's our FOSI at the Royal Cape Yacht Club in Cape Town in South Africa, this was a team representing, and I love to see diversity. I love to see something other than white men and women in sport, and there were plenty of Asians here, and you've got some Africans there, and it was nice to see. And these guys were terrific. They were a lot of fun. Had a good talk with them. And then we had our friend Ettore Battaccini, who I know from the Governor's Cup, who is the defending champion in World Sailing's World Youth Match Racing Championship. He won that last year. And I grabbed him here in the grill room for a quick interview on Sunday, Julia, while we were sitting there watching the racing. So meet Ettore Battaccini from the Circolo, we'll tell you about his club, Circolo Nautico Vela Argentario. How's that for getting it right? Enjoy this.
Yes.
We're here in the grill room at St. Francis Yacht Club on Sunday. What is this, the 15th? 14th of April with Ettore Battaccini, a good friend now from Governor's Cup and otherwise. Ettore, welcome to the grill room.
Thank you.
So what are your impressions so far of this event?
Well, this is a really nice event because the level is so high and the crew are really, really young. So that's the most important thing, I think. And we are watching the final. So let's see how we can finish it.
Who's here with you? Who crewed for you? How'd you do?
My crew here is we have our pit and jeep trimmer Alessandro Vonger,
Alessandro?
Hi, Alessandro. Nice.
and we have Lorenzo Gennari, who is the bowman.
I'm Lorenzo.
Did you have a good time?
Yes, fantastic.
Ettore, how did you end up? How'd you do?
Well, it has been a really tough week for us because we didn't practice a lot with this kind of condition, with this current, with this wind. So for us it was really difficult, but we tried to do our best. We did, I think. We were not able to reach the quarter-final immediately. We had to go straight to the repechage. We won the first match, and then we had a tough battle against the Kiwis, but we lost for a really strong tide in opposite direction. So we were a bit unlucky, I think, but that's the game.
Good event, though. You enjoyed sailing here?
Yeah, for sure. The venue is fantastic. The yacht club is also has a great hospitality for us, and everything is fine. Also, the members are really interested in the races, so that is the most important thing.
What is your next event?
Our next event is the Gold Cup in Bermuda. That is a great one, and we are going to do our best with a different team. We are going to practice more in Bermuda, so we will be well ready.
Good. Well, congratulations on all your successes, winning last year the World Youth Match Racing Championship, and good luck going forward the rest of this year.
Thank you very much, Tom.
So there is his club, the CNVA, and that was completely impromptu. They had come out because I knew him. Julie and I were sitting there in the grill room having an omelet, a little brunch on Sunday with some other club members who were watching. Now, the racing is going, as those of you who've been to St. Francis know, the race course is literally about 100 meters, not even, outside the front windows, the windows there in the grill room. So I grabbed Ettore and said, hey, let me stick you on the mic, and we just very quickly had, I'm going to get him back here in a second. But here's where his club is. Those of you who had not heard of the CNVA Argentario, it's in the Grosseto province in Tuscany, beautiful part of Italy. Well, Italy's just, what a fabulous country that is. And it was nice to have him there with us. And then we went out as the finals were starting. And in fact, the final race of the finals, it was first to win 3, and we went out on the right on the front deck, and I grabbed Ettore and asked him if he'd come out and do a little commentary with me, and hence this video. It's Sunday afternoon, about 14:45 here at St. Francis Yacht Club. We're watching the finals. This is race 3, I believe, of the finals of the women's event here at the Nations Cup in front of St. Francis Yacht Club. On the left in boat 2 is Nicole Briot representing St. Francis Yacht Club, and on the right is the defending champion in the women's division, number 1 ranked, I guess, in the world, right?
Yeah, the women's, yeah.
Ettore is here with me. Ettore Bonticini from Italy. What's your impression of this racing? Who's got the advantage here, Ettore?
Yeah, at the moment, since Nicole is a bit more forward, but the left side is going to pay every time. So if the French girls are ready to go back on the left, we will have a nice cross at the end. Let's see.
And the score is what? 2-0 in favor of the French at this
in favor
point?
of the French, yeah.
And it's first to win 3.
First to win 3, right.
There's a kiter right here in front of us. Have you done any kiting, Ettore?
No, never. But we have one member of our team that is a really good kite foiler. So, and we have another start there, and the final of the men's.
Yeah, coming up, Ettore correctly observes we got the men's final, and that is between, tell us about these gentlemen.
Yeah, we have the French guys.
Still more than a minute to go to their start.
Yeah, we have
Let's come back. Let's go out here and look at the women. As now they're coming in, you said the left is favored. Why?
Yeah, the fact is that we have less current as much as we as much as we go close to the coast. So it's better to go left to avoid that current in the opposite direction. So it's better to go as close as possible to the coast.
And the course, of course, is windward leeward, 2 laps. You can see the yellow buoy up there just to the left of the bigger mark to the left of the bridge. So they're going up on their first leg to windward, and then they will come back down here to this. I apologize for that buoy Crutonic right here off St. Francis.
television.
Back
I should have
upwind
stayed
for
there
a
so you could
second
watch that, but I'm
time.
trying to describe the course. It
And
was
then
good
back
action.
to the finish, and it's pretty close here, Ettore. What's happening?
We had the cross where the starboard boat was the boat of Nicole, so the USA girls.
And there was a green flag
the
from the
green
umpire.
flag, yeah, they forced the French to tack, and now they have split the beat, but they are going back on port, and let's see for the next cross.
Well, we've had a lead change here. Now Nicole Briot is in the lead, the local St. Francis team, ahead into leeward as they make their way up in plenty of breeze. What, 15, 18, maybe 19 knots?
Yeah, about this, we had a stronger wind in the morning, and now it is going down a bit, but it's always strong, so it's tough for the girls after a long week.
Well, the big difference now is the water, as you can see, is very flat because the current, the tide, is flowing in. It's flooding from the bridge from left to right as we look at it. And now the water's flat, whereas this morning at Torre it was really rough.
Really, really rough and difficult because the current was so strong, and I repeat, it has been a long week. So the final day is tough, and with this condition is more tough. So it's hard to be there now.
Well, it's still a close match. It looks like the French team are a little higher and quick. They're up on the hip, as we say in match racing, doing well. But I do think Nicole will tack on to starboard and cross, have right of way. She just got headed, turned down a little bit to the right. In fact, a big header. She'll probably tack here and take starboard advantage into the top mark. But meanwhile, here comes the start, Ettore, of the men's. Tell us what's happening here.
Okay, here it's always better to take the pin end to go immediately on the left. So
Pin being the red
yeah.
buoy, which is on our right, but on the left as the boats would look at it coming upwind.
Yeah. So in this case, we have the Brazilians on boat number 7, on the black, that are on the left. So they are going straight to the best side of the course, where we will have less current. So really good point for the
Why
Brazilians.
is there less current over here on the left?
Because the water is less deep than in the middle. So we have this situation always in each channel. When there is current, it's better to go where the water is less, I mean.
If you're going against the current, you want to be where there's less current, and that's along the shore because it's shallower, and the friction of the bottom of the seabed, or the bay bed in this case, slows the water down, hence slows the current. Now, this is very close. What's the tactical call here now as they come into the rocks just in front of us?
Yeah, now the situation is always the same. The first boat should ask a room to tack, also showing with a hand signal. We will see shortly.
That'll be a hand signal out to our left as we're looking at it.
Yeah.
They just hailed it, the fact that it didn't look even like a hand signal. And the early advantage to Haddad, the team from Brazil in boat 7, right?
Yeah. Right. Now they have the left, they are also on windward, so they are forcing the boat to go right. If they are able to stay there, it's going to be an easy upwind, but they are so close, so it's not so sure.
Well, we saw a similar situation in the women's match, and look at now, let's go back uphill, up to the bridge. They're way overstanding the mark. They're way out now, past what I think is the starboard ley line to the yellow buoy over here, wouldn't you say?
Well, the ley line is so hard to take now because there is lots of current there in the middle of the channel. But probably Nicole is forced to stay there because she's on leeward. So let's see. Here they go. Probably they are over the ley, and the French has taken the leadership.
So the French, by staying on the hip, as we say, the French in the black boat, the black tips of the sail, coming back, you can see they're cracked off. The sails are eased, and they're reaching back to the top mark, the yellow buoy over here, the yellow tetrahedron, to the left a little bit of that channel. Well, it's not really a channel marker. It's an old buoy, but back here on the men's, Ettore,
That's
the
actually called
Brazilians in
Anita
control
Rock,
over
for
the
those of
French.
you who've sailed
I think
here.
it's going to be quite the same situation as the girls. So the Brazilians are pushing the French on the right and keeping their leadership.
Okay, well, let's go back inside. It's bloody cold out here, and we'll watch as the boats have 3 more legs. They're on leg 1 of 4. They go upwind, as we mentioned, downwind here to this, well, it's not a gate. There's only a single buoy here between us and Angel Island. and then back upwind for a third windward leg, a third leg up to windward, and then back to the finish line here, which is the obverse of the starting line between the red powerboat and the orange pin buoy here between us and Alcatraz. Ettore Battaccini, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the co-commentary.
Thank you very much. See you later.
So that was the first time he'd ever done commentary, he said, and he was perfect.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
And you got to know him, Julie, a little bit in the grill room before we went out, and I just said, hey, come on, let's go out and do this. I wasn't really planning to go there and do anything. I was enjoying brunch, but the racing was so good, and it was hand-to-hand combat. And because as they're going upwind on, I got to get this down here, on Port Tack, they were able to hold, that is, Pauline Courtois is her name, from France, who ultimately won, and she was up 2-0. She was able to hold here, and way past the ley line, they tacked, and now they reached back in and putting the French ahead of the Americans, of Nicole Briot. And it was close racing. Then Nicole got ahead of her again, and then they had problems with their kite, and it was a very exciting match. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of it. But suffice to say, Pauline won 3-0, and the Brazilians did win that race. And they went up there. They were down then 2-1. And then what happened here? Checking for an update. I'm getting an auto update here on something. I don't know. We don't need that. Go back to my slides here, if I may. And suffice to say, it was a all French victory in the end. The Brazilians did win one of the three, so they lost 3-1 to Mr. Maxime Menil of France and his team, both supported by the FFV, by the Normandy. They call it the Normandy Elite Team, and that's Maxime far left. And then the women's team, of course, Pauline Courtois, who is the current world #1 ranked women match racer by World Sailing. And obviously these two teams have trained together. They have the coach there in the upper right corner of that shot. I don't know his name. I spoke with him briefly, but I had not met him before. Full marks. Congrats to the FFV, the French Federation.
It also speaks to the wisdom of having full-time staff and racing all year long against each other.
Exactly. And it's hard. You said, well, aren't they all Corinthian? And I said, well, it's a little hard to argue when somebody's full-time and maybe supported by their federation. Does that make you Corinthian or not?
Are you being paid to race? No.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the arrangement is. And that's why this whole Category 3, Category 1 stuff is so bloody difficult. But
yeah.
Good stuff. Congratulations to them. I did video. I went over to the club intending to video the prize giving, and we did do a video, and I think I've given it to the club, and I think they're going to put it up on their website. Maybe we'll put it up on one of ours so you can watch. 10 teams in each division from a dozen, eight countries?
I think
because there were a couple American teams. There were a couple teams from Australia. There were two women's teams from Sweden, for example. So there was some, maybe not as many as 10 countries, but here, I've got your chart here, Julia, that we have. So I see Italy, New Zealand, Brazil, Australia, Japan, Russia, France, the U.S., South Africa, and Estonia in the so-called open division. And then the women's division, all the same countries plus Finland. All the same countries plus Finland, or more or less the same country. So, nice event, terrific event. They're looking for a host for the next one. Maybe St. Francis will host it again because it was such a popular event, the camaraderie. I talked about the economics with Ettore Battaccini and his team. They flew over for, what he said, they spent $3,000, 3,000 euros, I think he said, 3,000 euros for flight costs. They rented a car, whatever else they had. Once they got here, they were housed by members, either on members' boats in the marina behind the club or in members' homes. They were fed, I think pretty much morning, noon, and night. and some grand parties. We didn't go to any of them because we were busy with other things. Did you go to any of those parties?
Nope, not this time.
But we did go to the prize giving, and the camaraderie. International sailing at its best. Match racing also is astonishingly good match racing. It was okay. I've waxed on enough. Full marks to all of them. Congrats to the club, to the sailors, to World Sailing for what was a special event. Very, very cool event. The Nations Cup, swept by the French, by the Fédération François de Voile. My French is obviously Croutonic. Okay, here's the promised news in the laser class, courtesy of Jean-Pierre Kekens. If you can believe this, that is not a class legal laser, or so Jean-Pierre tells me. They are now building, in fact, get this, the UK even recognizes that as these non-class lasers hit the market, they're going to the UK Laser Association, has announced on its website that a club edition of the laser has been introduced by Laser Performance. Now, that's the manufacturer who was defrocked. So they can't make class legal lasers, but they can make what they're calling a club edition laser. They're not calling it a laser. It's something else. I don't know what they're going to call it. This is presented as a, quote, training boat that does not bear the World Sailing building plaque or a sail button. The button sails, so that World Sailing, it's like a tag on your license plate that you have to put on. You pay to the state for your license plate, and then you get a tag each year. Well, you have to have these sail buttons, and it's a tax. It's a World Sailing is collecting taxes on every hull that's been built. Well, that's been going on for a long time, but it's a small amount. Now it's getting bigger, and it's important to them to keep the place funded because they are seriously short of cash. I saw an email a couple days ago that one or two of you on this show were also privy to that outlines just how they are very closely managing their cash. But I back to this. The statement reads, I'm in the middle paragraph now. This is fine as a training boat, but we feel it is important to clarify that these boats are not class legal based on the fundamental rule within the laser class rules. These boats will be ineligible to compete in any UKLA, that's the United Kingdom Laser Association, sanctioned events, broadly speaking, but not exclusively those advertised on the UKLA website. Adding, whilst the UKLA would like all laser racing to be conducted strictly in accordance with the class rules, it does not consider it should dictate to sailing clubs throughout the UK over their adoption, though they would be subject to protest by competing sailors in the same way that any non-compliant gear currently is. Interestingly, the statement indicates that the UK Laser Association is taking a neutral stance on the row.
In the
row or the row. Some people say row, some people say row.
Yeah.
Meaning the shit fight. Oh, did I say that? The
No.
S fight. Sorry, I don't like coarse language. Between the dispute between the International Laser Class ILCA and their former licensed manufacturer, Laser Performance. So this is getting
putting the sailor in chains.
Well, yeah. And the other thing is the cost is, as we heard the other day, it's, say you're in South America where there are duties and import duties and fees and so on, and you try to get a laser imported from Europe for the South American market, it costs something like $15,000 to get a laser into Argentina or Brazil or tell me where.
Huge, somebody.
Ridiculous. So here's a graphic I thought you'd enjoy. This I don't know if this is the Club Racer or this is Jean-Pierre Kekens sent this to me. He said, here, put this on your show, and then he's going to tell us what this is all about. But is this a class legal laser or not? In any event, if we were doing a crouton of the week, it would go to this whole laser situation. It's the most popular seriously raced dinghy in the world. There's north of 200,000 of these things have been built. A lot of them still actively sailed. This has got to be sorted out. I can't imagine that they won't put the laser back in the Olympics. Maybe there's a method to the world sailing madness. I doubt it. But let's hope there is, and we shall soon see if what is this, a shark or barracuda?
Yeah, your choice.
Your choice. Jean-Pierre Kekens, I'm sure, will put a comment here and explain it for us. Okay, croutons. And I don't know. I'm not going to make any more. Another Bravo Zoo. More good news. I like good news. This is a terrific piece of news from Antigua. Over 40 local youngsters aged 12 to 20 are participating in the highly successful Youth to Kiel program, Y2K. Not sure I like that name because of all that was a bad ramifications back at the turn of the century.
Oh, but it's memorable.
Okay, Y2K attended a special launch and briefing session on Saturday, this past Saturday the 13th, at the Antigua National Sailing Academy, where they learned how the week will roll out, this Antigua Race Week, Sailing Week, what to expect on race day, and the do's and don'ts of being a crew member on a big boat, something we've been advocating here for as long as we've been on the air, for a couple of years now. We think it's really important to get kids with adults in big boats to keep them interested, help them become interested in another segment of the sport, not just sailing around in Optimist dinghies by themselves, or largely by them. Allison Sly Adams, president of the Sailing Week, of Antigua Sailing Week, explains the importance of Y2K. Quote, although there have been many youths individually racing in ASW over the years, especially youth coming out of the Antigua Yacht Club youth program, as the National Sailing Academy has grown and more sailors in Antigua have dinghy racing experience, it's become, increasingly difficult to ensure that all of them get an equal opportunity to segue into big boat racing. The Y2K program was designed to create a structured pathway for just this reason. Great stuff. Congrats to them in Antigua at the Sailing Week and at the club. It's a big school program, too. It's part of the curriculum in the schools in the islands, just like it is in some parts of New Zealand, some parts of even Australia, I believe. And I love it. I think it's just great stuff.
Oh, Jean-Pierre Cookins called the boat Tiburon.
Tiburon, which is
shark.
Shark in Spanish.
Yeah.
What is it in French? Is it Tiburon? Maybe it's a French word. Is Tiburon also? Jean-Pierre, does Tiburon mean shark in French? How do you say shark in French? I know it means shark in Spanish, right? Tiburon. Okay, let's stop here. I've got this picture of St. Francis Yacht Club. I'll maybe do this segment. Tomorrow, as always, we'll wrap this up. We're going to be over at St. Francis Yacht Club, as usual, for the Wednesday yachting luncheon. We drag our equipment over there. We live stream this out of the goodness of our hearts. Don't we, Julia?
We do.
It's a pain in the Batinsky to do it, but they often have interesting shows, and I think tomorrow's may be very interesting. By the way, Terry Hutchinson, the skipper of New York Yacht Club's American Magic, is coming up in due course in the next few weeks. But tomorrow is Hannibal's Naval Legacy and the Dawn of Biological Warfare. And just because Julia went to Stanford, I'm not saying this is going to be a particularly good program, Julia, because this is Professor Patrick Hunt, who's rather well known as a history professor. I've seen and heard about him, I think, Bohemian Club and a few other places. And he is a fellow at the Royal Geographic Society and Explorers Club. This guy's the real deal. So he is going to talk about Hannibal, the Carthaginian commander, followed a great maritime tradition of Phoenician and Carthaginian seafaring and trade. In any event, you get the idea. And he also, apparently, this guy, Hannibal, started biological warfare, which some say we do here. In any event, all of that tomorrow at St. Francis Yacht Club. Same time, as always, each Wednesday, 12:30 Pacific, which is 19:30 in UTC, on their Facebook page. Sooner or later, I may YouTube those and put those up on our site as well, just to help give them more distro, especially for yacht racing specific shows. And maybe, Julie, if tomorrow's show is particularly interesting for yacht racers, for sailors, we'll put that up as well. What do you think?
I think it's a good idea.
So join us live or watch a replay there on the St. Francis Yacht Club Facebook page. And as Julia reminds us, you can just Google Wednesday
yachting lunch, and it comes up on Google.
Yeah, you don't even have to Google St. Francis, all those, just Wednesday yachting luncheon, and believe it or not, it comes up, because we've now done, I think tomorrow's show is show 60, 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Combined with our 170 some odd shows here, we're
Yeah.
getting up into. Okay, let's stop there before we wrap this up. We had a lot of folks on here with comments. Julie, any comments in particular you want to get to?
A couple. Who was it that said it? somebody suggested, I can't find it right now, that the boats all have GPS markers on them so that you can watch them on screen from anywhere while they're
Which
racing.
boats?
Any boats, but he was talking about the match racers.
Well, these tracking systems are really good, and the Ensenada race has the tracking system coming up here in a week's time.
You ought to be able to just put one on a boat without
You can. I mean, you can track AIS if you have. I mean, your late husband was a ship captain, and before the time of AIS, and now anybody that's got an AIS. And by the way, I read. I haven't confirmed it with the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, but apparently they have made a rule that everybody confirming the rule last year that got protested, resulted in a protest that then wasn't heard by the jury, but every boat has to have an AIS transmitter, and they have to keep it on.
Keep it on. Yeah.
But then they've added a sentence in the sailing instructions of the notice of race saying that if failure for any station, which presumably also means the race committee, failure of any station to receive that AIS signal is not grounds for protest or redress. Mm-hmm. So I guess they're probably having that rule for the purpose of satisfying government authorities.
It was Daniel Yount that came up with it.
Okay. Well, yeah, this tracking system, it cuts both ways, because if you're on a boat and you can see what your competition's doing and how much breeze, you can see how fast they're going, where they are and how fast they're going, you can deduce from that how much breeze they're in and whether then you ought to go left or right to either protect against them or to go try to get into the same breeze. But who else, Julia?
John M. at the bottom said, looking forward to year next week. Hope the internet is good enough to join the show.
Okay, well, we too. We appreciate you being on, John, especially late in the evening over there. Camille Daniels is on. Camille's the Commodore, the esteemed Commodore, first female Commodore at Long Beach Yacht Club. Camille, I was thinking, in fact, talked to Julia when I said we ought to do this Commodore's Corner, whatever we're going to call it. That's as good as name as any, but I was thinking specifically of Camille. We had Teresa Brander, who was the first female Commodore here at St. Francis, on, in December, just before her term ended. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to have you on, Camille, especially since your club is in the midst of an America's Cup challenge, and see how that's going. So if send me a note, Commodore, if you would. I'd love to get you on. Hamish Nicole, and who really are the best sailors? SSL development are evolving and constantly fascinating. They are well aligned with so many folks' views. Looking forward to hearing from KR. Yeah, we'll have Paul on, as I said, on Friday, and that will be great. Marcus is in Germany, presumably Berlin. Jan Zetzima is in Holland. What an international, cool group.
Yes.
We have on here Sandy Vartanen, Forrest Peterson down in SoCal, Margarita Marshall, only on lakes. Are you talking about Commodores, or?
I think you're talking about your own yacht club.
Oh, no. I mean, my little Clark Chapin, whom we'll have on, my club is on a lake. But no, we're talking about clubs anywhere in the world, large or small. We want to hear from cool clubs. We don't want to hear about from Crutonic clubs, but from clubs that think they have interesting programs, ideas to share with other clubs. That's the purpose of this, not just to tell us how cool your yacht club is. We could do that about the Beach Street Yacht. We put Julia on, who's the Commodore of the Beach Street.
That would do it.
Yacht Club. Julia, what's the coolest thing about the Beach Street Yacht Club?
Our annual general meetings are 4.5 minutes long, and they're timed.
And we sing.
And we sing.
It's all about camaraderie, the Beach Street Yacht Club, and there are 100 and some odd members. Many of you on here are members. Forrest Peterson's one of our newest members. I see he's on. And it's about camaraderie. It's just cool people from around the world who've been through here. I'm going to tell you what the initiation fee is a bottle of wine. You just doubled the dues, right?
Yes, we double them almost every year.
Yes, which means they've gone from zero to zero. Anthony Whitehawk is watching. Daryl Atkinson. But sorry, I'm back on Beach Street Yacht Club for a minute. The other thing is you have to sing a song of your choice. Okay. Blake Middleton, cheers from Lake Minnetonka. I wandered into Nassau Yacht Club 4 years ago off my first ever cruise ship on the day of the first ever SSL finals. Walked into the club, saw Dennis at the bar, Dennis Conner, Paul Caird and others who waved at me, and I watched in wonder as the smartest, most watchable final day format I'd ever seen happen. My best friend with me, who knew zero about racing sailboats, figured it out immediately. He's talking about this heat
the bracket.
heat racing. Is that what?
Yeah, heat racing.
Is that Ali D. Nass's
Yeah.
term of art? That
Yeah.
she's a smart gal, banker,
She is.
lawyer, heat racing. I like that. I think that's better than quad racing. Quad racing sounds like a bicycle with 4 tires or something. My best friend, this is Blake Middleton saying, my best friend with me, who knew zero about racing sailboats, figured it out immediately. The SSL Gold Cup looks to have more of the same. Kudos. Well said. Blake Middleton, was an old, longtime friend. He used to work for us at U.S. Sailing when I was executive director. Memory, sir, my aging memory. Matthew Nichols, Nicole, Commodore's Lounge. That sounds too lounge lizardy. Commodore's Lounge. And I think it needs what is the repetition of the initial consonant? That's
alliteration.
Alliteration. See, so I have a Stanford grad who was vice president of the student body. She was Chris Gruby, who is wrapped up with this, also with this Long Beach Yacht Club America's Cup Challenge. And I'd love to have you on, Chris, to tell us what's going on, because I know that there's some interesting things going on behind the scenes. I've not reported them. I'm not going to report them. But all 3 of those late entry teams are coming up against deadlines for real money, more money. And Long Beach is the only one that's really paid their bills, or most of them so far. Okay, Bill Porter, Jean-Pierre Keekins, Owen McKenzie, Tim Colt. There's a new name, Tim Coltman. Hello, Tim. Laura Baldwin. Hi, Laura. Commodore Tim Rumps of Bayview Yacht Club once said that he didn't want a designated parking spot because he didn't want the members to pick up his car and throw it into the canal at this Bayview Yacht Club in Detroit, which is one of the great yacht clubs in the Great Lakes. And Glenn McCarthy. Greg Tauersterna originally from Toronto, Canada. Katie Pettibone, Mason Sheen. John Emmett. Any more laser news on today? Well, you've heard it, I think. You probably posted it. John Eklund, Julie Martin. Tide is ripping. Yeah, it is in those. You could see in those videos. Dick Loomis. Room to tack. And the racing, there is no, as Julia says, she, I think, said it under her breath or when her mic was down during that video, we like to say that it's iconically beautiful and reliably windy, as it was for most of this Nations Cup Series, even though it's early. It's still April. It for sure is, as Katie Pettibone will tell you, it is reliably windy here May through at least September, sometimes into October. John Emmett will be good for sail, the Sail GP. Yeah, Sail GP is quite a different deal, and Sail GP is coming here in, 2 weeks' time?
Yes.
It's the 16th, 23rd, so yeah, a little more than 2 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks. And that is also in identical boats, but it's foiling catamarans, 50-foot catamarans. It's really the remade, remanufactured, souped up even, Bermuda America's Cup boats that Larry and Russell have taken back, and Mark Turner, better known as Tugboat, have rehabbed those boats, and you saw it in Sydney. We'll see it here in the breeze. Presumably there will be breeze for, as John says, for Sail GP. Grant Robinson, Richard Gladwell. Hi, Richard. Excuse me. Chris Exley, greeting from the North Shore of Massachusetts, presumably up toward Marblehead. Michelle Almeida, who's the great photographer. Robert Deves. Robert, you're doing a fabulous job of the PR for the Finn class. You have been for years, and also now for the OK Dinghy. This guy, we're going to have Robert Deves on here. 2 of the most popular shows we've done, Julie, as you know, were these shows that we had with Bernie Wilson and then with Talbot Wilson, no relation, and talking about PR output and what Bernie Wilson as a journalist needs to hear from regattas, clubs, classes. And we're going to do a lot more of that because it was really popular.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. And maybe we'll get Robert Deves on here, who's from the UK and is a primo. I'll tell you, St. Francis did a good job of the Nations Cup. Amanda Witherill, who we're losing, who's leaving the club. If anybody's interested in becoming the PR officer for the St. Francis Yacht Series, send us a note and we'll put you in touch. We don't know what's going on, the powers that be, except that they said she's leaving.
Yes.
And that she's staying until they find a replacement. So I don't know if they've shopped the job. We've just shopped it for them. They'll probably flick me from the club over doing so. John McNeil, Commodore McNeil, esteemed staff, Commodore, past Commodore of St. Francis, Dave Wilhite, Jean-Pierre Keekins, Argentinian prototype. Well, Argentinian, the Sharks. Tiburon. Requiem. So Requiem. How do you say that in French? Requiem? Requiem? Requiem?
Or Requiem.
Requiem?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't speak French, obviously. Spanish I can get by. German, Julie and I can get by in. John Turgliato. Hello, John. There's another guy who's tied up with Long Beach Yacht Club and America's Cup. John Emmett, looking toward a year next week. Hope the internet is, who else? Oh, Margarita Marshall saying, no, the new event, meaning the Gold Cup, the SSL Gold Cup, only on lakes. Well, I don't think so. I just think from what they said in their announcement, that's a good question to ask Paul on Friday.
Yeah.
Remind me, Julie, to do that. Or you can ask him. They're having the preliminaries on this lake in Switzerland, which I can't, starts with an N. I don't know how to pronounce it. And it is where they have a training set up already for the SSL. And then they're going to move the finals when they get down after the preliminaries. They're going to move the finals to Lake Geneva, presumably in Geneva, in front of the Société Nautique Genève. And that'll be world-class visibility. And plus they've got, maybe it's in Lausanne because they've been using the Olympic Museum. And Lausanne's just up, many of you will know, just up the shore from Geneva, an hour or so, if that, by train or by car. Bill Wingrove, heat racing like sprint cars. So I think there's another vote, virtual vote. How's that?
Yeah.
A virtual vote for
Why
heat
not?
racing. Allie D. Noss, you're onto something here. Ian Liberty, there's a new name. Mike Schachter, Alessandra Ponderate. Now, there's a name we haven't seen on here in a while. Alessandra Ponderate is a rules advisor, lawyer. She is the rules advisor for the Challenger of Record, and I think also for Prada, Luna Rossa. And I've known Alessandra forever, at least for the last 20-plus years. We've done battle. We've also worked hard, worked well together, and she is the esteemed rules advisor for the Challenger Record, COR 36, AC 36, and as smart a person as there is in the sport. Philip Friedman from San Diego's watch. Steve Lapkin. Aloha, Steve. So usually out in Hawaii. Chris Gruby. Hi, Tom. Thanks for the mention. SNS will be in touch with you soon to provide updates, answer questions, etc. This is Stars and Stripes, the Long Beach Yacht Club's team. Lots going on and just keeping our heads down and working hard for now. We appreciate your keeping an eye on us. Well, we do that. Ross Monroe's just signed on from New Zealand. I assume you're in New Zealand, Ross. Another great friend, long time. Okay, thanks to all of you. Unless there's anything else pressing, Julie, here's our photo credits for the day.
Only just to suggest to people, do go through the comments because there's always good stuff on.
Good point. Good point. And we go back and by the way, I will post this show now as we've been doing. I think I mentioned that at the top of the show. I'm YouTubing the show. After we are done here, I also put it up to YouTube and then put it on to sailingillustrated.com. And that, you'd be surprised that the quality is discernibly better because YouTube doesn't compress video quite the same way Facebook does when you put it up. And we are thinking about moving this show over to YouTube for a number of reasons, but more on that in due course. Okay, one final slide in addition to our photo credits. I put this on my Facebook page, and I had so many shares and so many comments. We love to say that sailing is not for everyone, but it is for anyone. This should be a sport available to everybody, to anybody. But, you know, if you're not reasonably smart, if you're not a lady and a gentleman, if you're not reasonably mentally and physically agile, as my father likes to say.
Good. I was going to say quick on your feet. But
quick on your feet, quick in your brain. You're going to hurt people. And, of course, as many of you will know, this gentleman, the famous late, great Albert Einstein, was by all accounts, historical and otherwise, and his friends, a great lover of sailing, but not a very good sailor. He was a rather absent-minded and got himself in all sorts of problems on Long Island Sound and Princeton, New Jersey, where he sailed. Okay. All the smartest people sail. I like that. When we do our T-shirts, Julia, we got to do that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another TFE Live. We're an hour and 20 minutes in. We're getting again, thousands of views. We appreciate your support and suggestions, thumbs up, shares. When you share it, it helps us a lot. Share it to your own
Yeah,
page.
very much a lot.
And the likes, and as always, the Patreon. We'll be back on Friday, same time, same channel. It's now in New Zealand, since they're off daylight time, it's an hour earlier than it's been for the last 6 months. So 1 o'clock here is -5. It's 8 o'clock in New Zealand. Richard Gladwell, thank you for joining us. I need to talk with you about some interesting developments that I'm sure we'll both be reporting on. And Julia, thank you very much to you. We'll see you. I got you on there with your title. And we'll see you again on Friday. Thanks, Julia.
All right.
Okay. Have a good rest of your week. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, have fun. Ciao. Bye.